theyeshiva.net.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Bruchim Abayim. Welcome. It's been a little bit of a longish break.
On vacation.
Okay, I missed you. We're going to start today with the Sefer Torah by the Balatanya, which we have learned in the past. And we're going to begin today with a Mayim in Parshas Toldos, which actually is related both to Parshas Chayei and to Parshas Toldos. It's page 34. On top it says Toldos. The second column, Mayim Rabim lo yuchlu l'chabes ha'sa'ava, or Daf Yud Zayin Amud Daled, Yud Zayin column 4, or page 34. You see, Mayim Rabim lo yuchlu l'chabes ha'sa'ava. Yeah, page 34 on top. The date of this Maimer, the Balatanya said this in the year Tovkuf Samach Tes, which would be 1809, a few years before one of the last years of his life, 1809, Tovkuf Samach Tes was actually said at the wedding of a grand... Huh? No, very good. Good thinking, not 1808, because it was said at the wedding of a grandchild, which was the Shabbos before Purim. So it was already 1809. When the Torah was organized by the Tzemach Tzedek, he chose to put this Maimer, he needed a Parsha, he chose to put it in Toldos, and Toldos, you'll see why, because it's connected to these Parshas. But the Maimer was said actually at a wedding, Shabbos, probably the Chuppah was Friday, and the wedding was Shabbos, the meal, the Sudan, that's when he said the Mayim was Shabbos before Purim, Tovkuf Samach Tes. This Mayim and Mayim Rabim lo yuchlu l'chabes ha'sa'ava. You'll also see the connection to a wedding, why he would say this at a wedding. Okay. He starts off with a pasuk in Shir Hashirim, the Song of Songs, Perik Ches, the last chapter, chapter 8. Shlomo HaMelech says, Mayim Rabim lo yuchlu l'chabes ha'sa'ava, v'chuli v'goymer u'nahoris lo yishtafua, which literally is translated, Mayim Rabim, many waters, the multitudes of waters, tsunamis, raging waters, kerenisht oislash in the lipshaft, they can't extinguish. Water usually extinguishes powerful flames, powerful fires. But even Mayim Rabim, the strongest of waters, could not extinguish, could not eliminate, could not destroy the love, the Av. Unahares, he continues, rivers, lo yishtafua, will not drown it. And the pasuk continues in Shir Hashirim, im yitin ishas kol hoin beisei, ba'ava bois yavuzulai. A person will think that he can buy love with all of hoin beisei. You win a mega lottery of $1.6 billion, and you'll be able to buy love with that. Bois yavuzulai. They will shame him. In other words, some things you can't buy and you can't sell. You can give the whole home base, and people try it all the time. They buy relationships with money. They buy their children, they think they buy their children's relationships with money, their spouses' relationships with money. I don't mean to get so personal so early in the morning, so fast. But it's just the facts of life. Some things you can't buy and you can't sell. It just doesn't go. A car you can buy, a house you can buy, a watch you can buy, a computer you can buy, a building you can buy, v'chuli v'chuli. If somebody even thinks that he can give all of his assets, all of his wealth of his home, ba'ava, in order to get the love that somebody else has, it's a bizayon, it's a shame, because obviously he doesn't understand how it works. You could buy connections, you can't buy relationships. Right? That's the pasuk, al pi pshat. So the Balatanya says, "Zohar Chayei Gimel Daf Nadalad Amud Beis." In Zohar, the third volume of Zohar, which means Vayikra, Parshas Mitzvah, Daf Nadalad, the Zohar quotes an interpretation of Rabbi Lazar, the son of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the author of the Zohar. He says as follows: Mayim Rabim, do Nahari Law, the Minei Nafkid Naharin L'Chol Ever. Mayim Rabim represents, that's the words of the Zohar, the higher river, which needs to be explained, but that's what he says, the higher river, And from this river come out rivers to every direction. In other words, this is like a source river from which many other rivers, other streams emerge. That's Mayim Rabim. That's why it's called Rabim, because it's a source, not of one river. It's of course of Mayim Rabim, many rivers. L'chol Ever, it's in each direction. That's still the Zohar. What do you gain from this interpretation of the Zohar? Why would the Zohar? The obvious question is, whenever the Chazal in Nister or in Nigla seek an interpretation on a pasuk, it's always because there's something missing, there's something lacking. It's time to find it. You said it's a Nahari law. What's the revach of it? What do we gain from it? And why will this Mayim Rabim distinguish the love? And you have to say Mayim Rabim lo yuchol l'chabes asav. So he says, V'hine anaharis nimshachim and amayanis. All rivers generally come from well springs. Mayanis, shamayanis noivim min hatahoy. Springs of water, mayanis kvalim, flow from the tahoim. Tahoim is deep underground sources of water. We call the tahoim, like it says in Chumash Bereshis in the beginning. Tahoim is like underground, or what you call sometimes called the abyss, very deep down. Mayanis come from the tahoim. Umehem nimshachim anaharis. And from them come out the rivers. As the pasuk says in Tehillim, David HaMelech says, "Hasheleach mayonim banecholim." This is in Barchi Nafshi, Kapitel Kuf Dalet. He sends forth mayonim, which are springs, banecholim, into rivers. The mayonim they feed the rivers. V'hamayonis, but there's a difference. Hamayonis noivim mitachas la'aretz. The springs, the kvalen in Yiddish, flow always under the earth. They're subterranean. Aval anaharis, the rivers, nimshachim begoli al pnei kol haaretz. The rivers, which may come from the river, from the Mayanis, they flow on the surface of the earth, meaning we see them, they're observable. The Mayan, you have to dig and excavate, and sometimes discover it, and many well springs we don't even have direct access to. The naharis, the definition of a river is it's al pnei kol haaretz, it's visible. Which this is Parshas physically. Therefore, Torah, the Gemara says that Torah is compared to Mayim. The Gemara says, "Babakama ein Mayim el Torah." The pasuk says in Yeshaya, "Hoy chol tzamei l'chula Mayim." Yeshaya Hanavi in Perek Nun Hey says, "Hoy," like wow, oi, every thirsty person, go to water, go drink water. So the question is, he doesn't explain it. In Tanya he says, you need a prophet to tell you that if you're thirsty, you should go drink water. What's the havam in it? Every person knows when you're thirsty, you go drink water. So the pshat is, when you're thirsty in life, not just thirsty for physical, you're dehydrated, but you're thirsty in life, you're thirsty for meaning. L'chula mayim, go to water, which is a symbol for Torah. So Torah is compared to water, yesh b'bchinas mayim. So just like when it comes to the sources of water in the world, there's different types of sources. There are the wells, the springs, and the rivers. Torah also has this element because Torah is compared to mayim. It has the mayan, which is the spring. This is what the Zohar says. Chakim v'lo b'chachma yediyah. The Hagdama of Tikkunei Zohar says he's a chacham, he's wise, but not with known chachma. When you say Hashem is chacham, chakim, he has chachma, he has wisdom, but it's not the chachma that we know. It's not the type of chachma, wisdom that we speak about. It's the source of it, but it's not that. In other words, she'einoi musag klal. It's incomprehensible. K'moshel hamayin she'neveyim mitachas lodas ve'nikra v'nigla. Just like the Maya, the spring, which flows under the earth, it's subterranean, and it's not recognizable or revealed. So the Mayan represents a source, but the source is not easily accessible or visible. So in Torah, this represents a component of Torah, which he will explain, which is like the Mayan, it's not visible. And on this, the Zohar says, Chakim, there's Chachma, which Torah is Chachma, of course, but it's V'lo b'chachma yediyah. It's not a known Chachma, meaning a visible, accessible, easily articulated, something that can be articulated and defined in our terms. V'yesh b'bchinas naharis, but there's also rivers. There's mayanis and naharis, springs and rivers. On this the pasuk says in Bereshis, "V'nahar yoytze me'eden lahashkois es hagan." A river comes out of Eden. Hashem creates Adam and Chava, says He puts them in the Gan Eden. So the Gan Eden, the Garden of Eden, where all the trees are. So a river comes out of Eden, a place called Eden, to irrigate, to untrinken, to give mashke, to give water to the Gan. And then the pasuk says, "Umisham yipared," and from Gan Eden the river splits into four v'hayal arba rashim, and there's the four rivers of Bereshis. You have Nahar Chidekel, which is the Tigris River in Iraq. You have Nahar Pras, of course, which is the Euphrates River, also in Iraq. And you have the Pishon, and you have the Gichon. You remember Parshas Bereshis? The Gichon and the Pishon and the Chidekel and the Pras. The Pishon, Rashi says, is the Nile River in Egypt, the Nile Delta. And the Gichon is debatable which river it is. But those are the four rivers that come from the Nahar, Yoitze Me'eden Lahashkes Asagan. This is a different element in Torah. Shaziv Hashchina Hamizgala Began Eden Bahasagas Rozen Deiraisa. The ray of the Shechina. Every pasuk, of course, is physical, but it's also symbolic. It's spiritual as well. So the ray of the Shechina, which is revealed in Gan Eden, what's pshat that's revealed? Bahasagas Rozen Deiraisa. In Gan Eden, one comprehends the deeper component, the secrets of Torah, because in Gan Eden, when you're learning in Gan Eden, for example, Shnayim Moichas Betalis and Baba Metzia, two people are holding on to a cloak and fighting about it. There's no physical cloak there. There's no talis. Or Hamachlef Para B'Chamor, or Shersha Nagachas Apara, or Arba Avis Nezikin. If your shur goes and gores somebody, you have a pit, or a person is mazik, or you have a fire. Any concept in halacha, in Gemara, in Chumash, all Taryag mitzvahs, all the poskim, they learn it in Gan Eden. But over there, everything is Rozen Deiraisa, meaning it's every halacha, the way it originates in a spiritual form. And then it assumes a physical meaning as well. And it's all one, it's all connected. So he says in Gan Eden, you have Asagas Rozen Deiraisa. There's the comprehension of the secrets of Torah. So in the Ziv Hashchina, the ray of Torah, which is revealed in Gan Eden, in comprehending the deeper light of Torah, Nimshach Mebchinis Nor Hayotze Me'eden. That ray comes from a river, which comes from Eden. The river comes from Eden, and it gives chiyus, it gives vitality, it gives water, vibrancy to the Gan, to this the Gilui, to the revelations. What is the revelation? Revelation is the river that comes from Eden to be Mashka, the Gan. That's the Ziv Hashchina. So it comes from the Nar, which comes from Eden. And this river
Nar is already on the surface, but Nar we see already.
Right, in a Chaname.
Oh, but Eden was a Mayan.
Eden is, so to speak, invisible. And then the Nar comes out. Comes out means it emerges from Eden. And there's a ziv, there's a ray, meaning there's a revelation. A ray means you could see it, a ray of light you could see. Soon we'll have hopefully a ziv. So therefore you could see it. There's a certain gilui in Gan Eden, and it's not one river. That river then is divisible into many, many rivers. What do we mean? Amshachas pratim, individual flows to every single soul according to its mahalach, according to its comprehension. It has its own river, so to speak. From that one river which comes from Eden, there's many divisions. And that's why it's called Nahar. What's the shaykhis? What does he mean? What's the shaykhis to Nahar? Nahar in Aramaic comes from the word Nahar, which is light, beginning of Psachim. Light. Nara, yeah. So, B'meila Nahar is in Aramaic is a translation of light. You say Nahar, Sad Geloichten, it lit up. So therefore he says that's why it's called Nahar. Because the river is not the Mayan. The Mayan is not Nahar. The Mayan is not visible. It's not luminescent. It's not bright. You can't see it. The Nahar is the way something that's invisible comes out in a way that one can comprehend it. The tzaddikim in Gan Eden, v'amech kulam tzaddikim, can comprehend it. Based on this introduction, that the Zohar says that Mayim Rabim is Nahari law, and from there come many rivers. We said that the same thing is in Toldos, and on this the pasuk says in the Shir Hashirim, Mayim Rabim lo yuchlu lechabes es ha'ava shel knesses Yisrael ha'kadosh baruch. that the Mayim Rabim can't extinguish the love. Al pi pshat motz Mayim Rabim, like he says in Torah, Parshas Noach, we learned, Mayim Rabim is tirdas haparnasa, the stress of life, the raging stress of life. Yeah. World is not as sheltered as this basement here at 645. There's stress in the world. So Mayim Rabim, the raging stress can't extinguish the love. In other words, your core love will not get destroyed ever. But like the Zohar, this doesn't make sense. Mayim Rabim is a madrega. It's Giluyim of Gan Eden. So why would you think revelations of Gan Eden would extinguish the love? There's something warfare. The Zohar just makes the pasuk l'chayda much more problematic. So he says, this is pshat. The Mayim Rabim will not still, it will not quiet down the ava of Knesset Yisrael, of the Jewish people in their gathering together to Hashem. Why? Even though Mayim Rabim, according to Rebbe Loz in the Zohar, represents a revelation of tremendous lofty madregas, gewaldige giluyim of ruchnius, extraordinary revelations of godliness, which is the essence of Gan Eden. The whole Gan Eden is like the Gemara says in Brachas, Yudzayin, Tzadikim, Yoshrim, Atreseim, Beresheim, Benenin, Miziv HaShchina. That's why he uses the expression Ziv HaShchina, comes from the Gemara. So the Chayei Mayim Rabim is gewaldig. So we say, Im kol zeh lo yashkitu es ha'ava. It will not silence. It's not going to calm down the ava. The soul will not get satiated and quench its thirst, literally, through this gilui. Don't think that this Mayim Rabim is enough for the nefesh. It's not enough to make the nefesh feel, I got it. It didn't get it.
It's emotion, and this is we're talking about.
But even a gilui that's emotional. A gilui means that it's emotional. If it's not, ultimately it's not a shaykhis, yeah.
So the shtokikus will just not be extinguished.
Yes, the yearning will not cease. The shtokikus, the gaguyim, the sense of ava, the lipshaft of the neshama, will not be stilled, it won't be silenced, it won't be calm. You won't feel, I'm not thirsty anymore. Geschmack, I got what I wanted. A person is thirsty or yearning for a person, for something, for a success, for an idea. Even Mayim Rabim, lo yuchel l'chabas asava. That's a chiddush already. Mele Mayim Rabim, stam Mayim Rabim, the raging stresses of life, okay. But such Mayim Rabim still lo yuchel l'chabas asava. That's what he says. On this, the pasuk says in Tehillim, David HaMelech says in Tehillim, Mili b'shamayim ve'imcha lechafatzti ba'aretz. Kapitel Ayin Gimel, Mili b'shamayim ve'imcha lechafatzti ba'aretz. What does it mean? Who do I have? Mili b'shamayim ve'men habech. Who do I have in heaven? And with you I desire nothing on earth. So Al Pi Pshat, David HaMelech is saying that with you, ultimately I'm good. I have you, I don't need anything else. He says, but really it means much deeper than this. Shamayim ve'eretz hem gan eden elyon v'atacht. Just like Mayim Rabim. You could touch Mayim Rabim as Gerabim Mayim Rabim. The raging waters of stress. Yeah. Or you could touch Mayim Rabim like the Zohar touches Mayim Rabim. Edel Mayim Rabim. Gan Eden. Same as Shamayim and Eretz. Shamayim is Gan Eden elyon. It's the higher paradise. Eretz is Gan Eden atachten, the lower paradise. And the neshamas have tremendous tainug through the river that comes out of Eden lahashkes sagan, whether it's Shamayim or Eretz. Gan Eden El and Gan Eden Atachten both have a common denominator. They both have the river that brings water from Eden to the Gan. So there's a gewaldige tainug. You're sitting and basking in the river of Gan Eden. Tremendous tainuk. Im kol zeh, nonetheless, mili b'shamayim, he says. Vas habich in himmel. There's something that's still not there for me. Ki Gan Eden urak l'fisha. Gan Eden is take a große Sach, but essentially it's temporary. Ikir hagilu yilasid love b'tchis hamesim. The main action, so to speak, the main gilui, the main truth, comes out in the future in tchis hamesim, which according to many in the Ramban is in this world. On this the pasuk says, "Umayon Yotza mi Beis Hashem. Pasuk in Navi in Yoel. The river comes out mi Beis Hashem shezal l'mayla mayla mebchinas nahar. Far much deeper than the river. So mili b'shamayim v'imcha lechafatzti ba'aretz. Heaven is not enough. It's not what I want. And Eretz is not what I want. Even Shamayim and Eretz as Gan Eden Elyon and Gan Eden Atachtim. Because the Mayim Rabim could not be mechaber, could not silence the Ahava. Because this is only the Nar, and there's something called the Mayan, which is deeper than the Nar, which doesn't come out in Gan Eden. V'hainu, how does one access this? This can only be accessed in this world. Alidei Eisek HaTorah mitzvahs, through the immersement in Torah and mitzvahs. Shal zen nemer, on this it says in Parshas Chayei, Rivka comes, Eliezer comes to find a shidduch for Yitzchak. And he goes to the well outside of the city, and we'll soon see the story explained. And he makes the siman, this week's Parsha, that the person who's going to offer water to him and his camels, this is a good sign. This is a siman that it's a good shidduch. When he sees Rivka, she goes down. B'nai Sa'ir Yaitza says that the girls of the city come out. This is before there were sinks in the home and sources of water in the home and water pipes. And you went out. You had to find a well. There's still some countries. When we were in the Ukraine, I remember I saw a well outside of in one of the cities near the cemetery, and people were coming to fill up from there. So they would go out with a jug, with a kad, with a barrel, a flask, and fill up the water. So it says, Vaterid ha'aina, Rivka went down into the well. Apparently you had to go down, whatever they built, steps or a ramp. Vatamali kada, she filled up her kad, her jug of water. Vatal, and she came up to take the water home. That's what they used to drink. That's what they needed to drink for the people, for the animals. And of course, whatever they needed else, water for, whether it was cooking or bathing or washing, v'chuli. So he says, what's pshat? Vaterid and malikada. Spiritually, kada is two words. It's two letters. Kad. Kad means a jug. A kad, a jug. Like kad shemen, kad yayin, kad maya. Heim chavdalit svarim da'iraisa. But there's also a remez here. Kad, chavdalit is the 24 svarim of Tanakh. From Bereshis all the way through Torah Nevi'im Exum, you have 24 svarim. Shehem nimshachim b'chinas hamaya. The chavdalit svarim come from the Mayan, from the spring. Vaterid ha'aina. She goes in not to the Nahar. She goes under earth. That's why you have to go down. They had to dig. You have to excavate a Mayan. Vaterid, she went into the Mayan. Vatamali kada. From there come the chavdalit. She filled up the chavdalit svarim, the 24 svarim of Torah. Meaning, this is the chachma that's unknown. It's not the nohar that you can comprehend in Gan Eden. This is the chachma that's v'lo b'chachma yediyah. That's the Mayan. That's what she picked up. And even though it's always here, the Mayan is here, and that's what Torah is. But the real gilui of this is going to be lost in the future, not in Gan Eden, which is temporary, but chiyas hamesim, the time of chiyas, which is deeper in Gan Eden. In order to access this through Torah and mitzvahs, al zan nemar, it all had to start with Rivka. It was only she who was capable of opening up this process. If Rivka would not go down into the well and take her jug and pick up the water, we would not have access to the Maya. It started with Rivka. She is the one who has the capacity to fill up the chavdalet, the kad, with the water of the Mayan and bring it out and allow for the whole process that he starts talking about, Torah and mitzvahs, which produces the gili of Chiyas HaMesim here in this world. This is, so to speak, the introduction, the prop set up in order to understand the Nekud. To start understanding, to understand all of this. Ma'abchinas Rivka. First of all, who is Rivka? What is Rivka? What's the connection to Rivka? Again, on the literal level, it means she went down and she drew water from the Maya. The Gemara says in Shabbos, Samach Gimel, every pasuk has its literal interpretation, obviously. On a deeper level, or the way they learn it in Gan Eden, maybe, or here it's even deeper than Gan Eden. Here, the way they learn it in the Mayonis and in Gan Eden is Vatamali Kada. There's the remez here of Kada, which you see b'chlal also that this story in Chumash is one of the longest story in Chumash. It's almost like 60 psukim. You don't have stories that go like this. The story of Eliezer and Rivka at the well goes on and on and on in every detail, and it's repeated, and Eliezer repeats the whole story twice, the way it happened, and then the way he repeats what happened. And as the Gemara, the Medrash says, Gufei Torah le'nitnu ela b'remizah. That you're not allowed to do 39 malachas on Shabbos doesn't say anywhere in the whole Chumash. It's b'remizah, it's a remez from this word and that word. And here, the story of Rivka went down to the well occupies an enormous amount of space. It's the longest story in Chumash. The story of Rivka going down to the well. And the deeper beard is because it's not just the story of going down to the well. It's rather the story, the beginning of Jewish history, as will be explored. You can't understand Rivka if you don't understand Yitzchak, because Yitzchak and Rivka work together. Even though, as we'll see, they were two opposites in many, many ways. But to really appreciate, understand who Rivka is, you have to understand who Yitzchak is. So he starts with Yitzchak, later he'll come back to Rivka. Now he changes the subject from Naharis and Mayonis and Chavdalad and Chakim v'la b'chach miyadiyah and Mayim Rabim yuchel chabas asava. He goes completely off to a different subject, and he's going to return only later towards the end of the Mayim. The word Yitzchak, we all know, the Pasuk says already in Vayera, is the concept of tzchok, laughter. Sarah said, Kol Hashemeya Yitzchakli. Tzchok asali elikim. Tzchok means laughter. And laughter represents tainug, which is geshmak, delight, pleasure. You'll say this was hilarious, it was funny, entertaining, engaging. So that's the concept of tzchok. Who gilui tainug elyon l'tzadikim lasid love. The deeper concept of tzchok is not just somebody makes a joke and everybody laughs, but it represents the tainug ha'elyon l'tzadikim lasid love. The tainug ha'elyon, the pleasure, the delight that tzaddikim, and again, when he says tzaddikim here, it's because of the lashonos of Chazal, but v'amich kulam tzaddik. It means every person, in their own way, they're a tzaddik. V'amich kulam tzaddikim. The Gemara, the Mishnah says, Kol Yisrael Yasham Chayil Kel Maber Tzam v'amich kulam tzaddik. La'asid lavi in the future. Kamashakasav Leviason Zeh Yatzar to L'sachek. Pasuk says in Tehillim again in Kuf Daled Barchi Nafshi, same capital of Hasheleach Mayonim Banechala. You created the Leviason to L'sachek boy, to play with him, to enjoy him. The Leviason is a toy. What's this concept? You created the Leviason L'sachek boy, to play with it, to laugh with it. L'sachek also means laugh, like L'sachek, Yitzchak. So the idea here is, and the Gemara says in Babas is going to be the Sudas Leviason. L'asad is going to be the Sudas Leviason, meaning Leviason and Sharabar. Leviason represents a certain type of relationship that creates tzchok and tainug and simcha. Leviason, as he's going to explain what that is, l'sachek boy, and that's going to come out l'asad lavai, the true pleasure, the true beauty of history. During history, you don't always see the tainug, you see the avodah. It's like when you're building a house or you're involved in something, you can't sit back and see the whole picture because you're doing it. It's the time of sweat. L'asad lavai means when you have the whole picture. You see it. You know, sometimes you look back at your life and you see how the story comes together. When the story is happening, it doesn't come together at all. Everything is disjointed, fragmented. You don't know what hit you. You're trying to dodge either bullets or baseballs. But hopefully baseballs. But the point is that it's very, very, you're enmeshed in it. And then when the story is over, you can experience the tainuk. That's the idea of l'asad lavai, when all of history, l'asad lavai is not that it's the future, it's not now. It's just you see what was going on the whole time. You get to see the matching moment when everything comes together, which usually we're not privy to that. We can't live like that because every day there's an avodah, responsibilities and duties, etc. But l'asad lavai represents it all comes together, and you have the gilui hatainu. Exactly. That's the. Why did they name him Yitzchak? Yitzchak means he will laugh. Tzchok asad el kim ben tzachak, not Yitzchak. Why l'asad? Right? Yitzchak means evet lachem. But Sarah said, "Schayk asali alakim. Ich hab schon gelacht. Kol hashemei Yitzchak li now." But he's named for the future. Ki hine b'chinas schayk. For this, we have to understand what the schayk is. Ki hine b'chinas schayk asalanu alakim. Sheb'chinas gilui tainug zenim shechayei shem alakim. Sarah uses the words schayk asali, and he says lanu because she says kol hashemeya. Elikim. The name that's used is Elikim created a schayk. In other words, this tainug always comes through Shem Elikim. The tainug, the laughter of Yitzchak, comes through Elikim. The inyan in this is, the pasuk says in Tehillim, Ki shemesh u'mogein havaya Elikim. It says Yud Kei Vav Kei Elikim. Tehillim, I think, Pei Dalet. David HaMelech says, Hashem Elikim is a shemesh and a mogein. What means a shemesh and a mogein? A sun and a shield. Shemesh u'mogein Hashem Elikim. Hashem Elikim is the sun and the shield. The way you learn the pasuk, everybody learns it. He's giving two terms for Hashem. He's the sun. He gives you light and he protects you. Shemesh u'mogein Hashem Elikim. Taichas the Balatanya, that's not the pshat. Shemesh u'mogein Hashem Elikim means there's a shemesh and there's a mogein for the shemesh. And that's like Hashem and Elikim. That's done two things. Hashem is a son, Hashem is a protector, and we put it together and we use two names. No. Sheshem Elikim hu ha-mogein v'nartik al shem havaya. The sun has what's called a mogein, a sheath. It's called a sheath, yeah. It's a nartik, like a baitel, something that protects the sun. Protects us from the intense light of the sun. So Shem Elikim is the mogein. It's what protects Shem havaya. Like the mogein protects the shemesh. Shemesh or mogein. That's the relationship of Hashem Havaya, Yud Kei Vav Kei Elikim. What's the meaning? Shem Havaya is Hamahava Me'ayin Liyesh. Yud Kei Vav Kei is the divine energy that creates everything from nothing to something. Shahanartek, and then you have the Nartek, which is the protector who kisui vehelim. It really eclipses. Sebahalt, it conceals. That just like the sun, you only have access to the light and the heat of the sun through the nartek of the sun, through that which covers the sun. Shem Yud Kei Vav Kei, which is Mahava. Yud Kei Vav Kei comes from the word Yahava, Hoiva, right? Hoya, Hoiva. It's Mahava. It brings into existence everything. Can only flow through the levush of Elikim. Ukamashal Oivaziv Hashemesh. Just like the sun, it only brightens up the cosmos through a masach, through a curtain. Upargud, like we say, a veil. And because of this shield, that's what allows the nivroyim, every created being, to feel itself separate. Why do we feel ourselves completely separate to the point that a person doesn't even necessarily experience his relationship with the divine, even though the entire existence of a person is essentially Shem Havaya? Hashem is creating everything, every single moment. Nonetheless, in hergish and feeling, we don't feel a connection. Everyone feels nifrit. You're on your own. You're on your own in this world. You're alone. You're solitary. Go fight your own battles. You feel completely separate, as a separate identity, and you're struggling to find what that is. My yesh, my sense of self. Who am I? That's the struggle of humanity. Wer bin ich? Wer bin ich nicht? Who am I? So he says, it's all because the shemesh comes through the mogein. Ubisrabas halavushim, the more levushim on the sun, the more veils on the sun, through the 120 configurations of Elikim, meaning Elikim is 5 letters, Aleph, Lamed, Hey, Yud, Mem. Any word that has 5 letters, you could write it in 120 ways. It's hard to imagine, but that's the fact. Aleph, Lamed, Hey, Yud, Mem. Aleph, Hey, Lamed, Yud, Mem. Aleph, Yud, Lamed, Hey, Mem. I'm not going to go through the 120. It can't speak Leben off of art. But the Shem Elikim, like any 5 letter, has 120 tzirufim. So it's not stam a mistake. It means there's different ways how Elikim is also a lavush. But then there's way Elikim comes with another lavush, and every tziruf is a different way the energy comes out. with more garments and more veils and more veils. Nimshach lamata ba'asiyah. What's the product here in this world, the world of action? Hachoshech v'ahesta b'yoser. Tremendous concealment and darkness, where a person could live their whole life lost, dark, confused, uncertain, lonely, not realizing that at every single moment they're absolutely one with the divine, because the Havaya always comes out through Elokim, and the Elokim is master. It conceals the relationship, it conceals the clarity, encrypts, eclipses, etc. Valkein Yordan Shamal. For this, the soul comes down to this world, Lias Oivid Elokim. The expression always is an Oivid Elokim. So literally the pshat is Edin de Meibersten, Oivid Elokim. He serves Hashem. Obviously that's emes. So he says a much deeper than that. Oivid Elokim means Dahainu lavoid ulesakein Elokim. Dahainu lavoid ibe arbetin Oivid ma'abed. One of the malachas of Shabbos is ma'abed. What's ma'abed? Ma'abed is you take the oir. It's called tanning. You take the iris, the hide, the skin of an animal, and it's not usable at the moment. Saimetzad the hair, Saimetzad the odor. You have to process it. It has to be recreated, and it's a tremendous avoid. It's called ma'abed, ois arbetin. Shred on it and work on it and mix it with salts and waters and different spices until we turn it into whether it's parchment or leather, whatever the final product is. This is called ma'abed, which is one of the malachas on Shabbos. Oived comes from that word, ma'abed, that arbetois, dahainu laved u'lesake, es p'chines ha'choshech v'ha'hester ha'nimshech b'shem Elokim. To work through, to fix, to repair the darkness that comes because of Elokim. Le'hapchech ha'shoichel l'nohayra, to transform darkness into light. That's Pshat on Oived Elokim. On Oived Elokim means that the neshama comes down to work through Elokim. Was heißt, as a result of Elokim, there is a lot of confusion in life, there's struggle in life. A person doesn't feel their divine identity. They don't feel their closeness, their intimacy, because Havaya is being communicated through Elokim. If there wouldn't be Shem Elokim, there wouldn't be a sense of separateness. If the doors of perception were cleansed, as somebody once said, if the doors of perception were cleansed, everything would appear as is, infinite. Infinite means everything is one. There's oneness in the world. There's oneness in a person. There's oneness in the entire cosmos. There's no separation, not between you and me, not between me and God, because the whole sense of yesh only comes as a result of the hester, the fact that Shem Havaya is concealed, and therefore I now have to find myself, struggle with my identity, and deal with all types of issues that people deal with, from fears to traumas to insecurities, to all the challenges that comes from the lack of realizing your true infinite power, your true infinite greatness, because of your oneness. There's a flow, there's a seamless flow, but I don't feel it. Oived Elokim means to work it through, not to get stuck in the choshech, but to work it through and transform the darkness into light. Transform darkness into light means to clear it up, to clear up the confusion, to be able to allow the flow to come through and not let anything interrupt the music. That's why the pasuk says, "Vayichulu Hashemayim." Hashem created. What's the lashon? We say it in the Kiddush, right? Ki vayshavas mikol malachtoi asher bara Elokim lasos. So the Mefarshim say, "Vayshavas mikol malachtoi asher bara Elokim." He rested from the malacha that he created. He rested from the work that he did. Asher bara Elokim lasos. So the Medrash Rabbi says, "Upidish Medrash lasos l'sakein." V'hainu l'sakein ha'hester ha'nimshach b'shem Elokim. V'hu ha'idei bitul hayesh la'ayin sha'idei ze es hapchech ha'shoichel l'noher. Asher bara Elokim. The purpose of creation of Elokim was lasos. That now it's time for you to work. L'sakein. To be besaken. In other words, when you encounter choshech and hester, the last thing to do is to get nispal, to duck, to become meek, to get lost in the process, to become a victim. Because when I become a victim, what it basically means is I missed the whole point. The whole point of the lasos of the Elokim was l'sake. It was an invitation for you to fix, to repair, to open up. So when you encounter those moments, and everybody encounters them in their own way, whatever it may be, intellectually, emotionally, experientially, where the flow is interrupted, the natural flow is interrupted through all types of what we like to call issues, or baggage, or toxicity, for those who are more developed in this area and have more experience. Yeah. So when you see toxicity, basically what's happening is that your energy is just getting stuck. There's just a stuckness here. So when somebody encounters that, they can surrender, they can become a victim, they can despair. What he's saying here is the whole purpose of the neshama coming down is to be an oivedelikim. Don't get dispelled from it. Don't get affected by it. On the contrary, now starts your avodah to be able to take this darkness and transform it into light. And this is the bittul hayesh la'ayin, where the yesh, the separateness, goes back to the ayin. Ayin literally means nothingness. In other words, where there's nothing separate from the source, because the yesh, the sense of self, is one with all. And he says, generally, this is done in davening, where the soul surrenders, the soul goes back to its source. That's what davening is. Davening is going out of Elikim, bringing Elikim back to the source, and then through Torah and through mitzvahs, three things. That's pshat. The laughter comes only from Elikim. Laughter in life, you can only laugh in life if you have Shem Elikim. Kamashal is an interesting metaphor. Kamashal atzchoik sha'oisim hasarim. In the Balatanya's times, this was a very popular thing. It's still popular in some places. The real feinschmeckers, the monarchy, the sarim, the great, powerful ministers, nobility, they needed entertainment. They didn't have to sit in the farms a whole day in Belarus and Ukraine and Lithuania. They needed entertainment. So what they do? So it's always midavar chadash. They always needed the novelty. Right? People need novelty for entertainment. They would have these, what were they called? The gladiators, yeah? And they would place a lion with another Chai, another powerful Chai, and they would watch the battle. And this was a tremendous tainuk for them. She says, what's? So B'Pashtus, you say, stam achzorius, it's cruelty, which is true. But in everything you have to understand, there's something that you could learn from it. Was liegt in them? So he says, Schachus and tainug, laughter and pleasure always comes from the hischachus, from the newness, from the unexpected. Who's going to win? In America, they call it Sunday football. But it's the same concept. Who's going to win? If somebody already, if you know who's going to win before the game, it's nicht good. Right? Those who can't be at the game, they videotape it because they couldn't watch it. You have to make sure not to tell them who won. Because the excitement is, the expectation, what's going to happen. The greatest ischachus, the newness in life, this is where human creativity comes in. This kavayachal doesn't come from Hashem. By Hashem is einoid mulvada. The creativity of the human being is that a person who's l'chayra yesh and davar nifrit completely separate has the ability to mevatel himself, to align himself with the divine, to surrender the separateness that creates the greatest chag, that creates the greatest laughter, as he will go on to explain. So the summation till now, what we learned this Mayim Rabim Layuchel L'Chabas and Torah Parshas Toldos, very briefly, was that are the rivers Mayim Rabim Layuchel L'Chabas Esa'ava. The Zohar identifies as the great river from which many rivers come. The Balatanya explained that there are the wells, the springs under the ground. That's not visible. And Ashaleach Mayonim Banachalim, from the springs come the rivers which are visible. The first river that's mentioned is the river that came from Eden to irrigate the garden, Gan Eden. And from there, the Torah says in Medrash, it's split up into many other rivers. But they're rooted in the mayonis, in the springs that are subterranean beneath the earth, that you can only access by sometimes digging very, very deep, what we call the Tahoim, deep under the ground. Spiritually, everything in the physical world is a reflection of the spiritual world. The Gemara says in Mubakama, Ein Mayim ala Torah. Mayim is Torah. So in Torah, you also have these two things. The springs of Torah, the Mayonis of Torah, what he called Antu Chakim v'lo b'chachma Yediyah, the Chachma, the divine reality of Torah that is not accessible. It's not articulated or defined in terms that are easily accessible to the mind, even the highest mind. It's a different type of Chachma Yediyah, even though it's the source of all of Torah. And we'll soon see what that means a little more, what that means. And then there's the element of Torah, which are called the Naharis of Torah, the rivers of Torah. In that itself, you have the Nahar Yotzim Me'edim Lahashkas Hasagan. Nahar comes from the word Nahar. The Gemara says in the beginning of Masechet Pesachim, right after the Mishnah. I didn't realize the connection. But Daf Beis Amud Aleph, that Nahar means light. It lights up. The morning lights up. Haboiker Or V'Anoshim Shulchu. Haboiker Or, morning lights up the world, the planet, the earth, and that's Nahar, because the Nahar is already the Gilui. It's the revelation. It's the light. The Mayan comes to light. Under earth, it doesn't come to light. There's no Nahar. There's no Or. On the contrary, it's completely dark and eclipsed. In Gan Eden, you have the first Gilui, the Ziv Hashchina. There's a ray. Ziv also means light. Also, Ziv means light, right? We say in the Volotzion, Ziv Yikare. So, Ziv in the Gan Eden is also the light that comes from the Mayan, the Nahar Yotzim Me'edim, to be Mashka the Gan, and from there it splits up into many rivers, as he says, every person, every tzaddik, according to his capacity. And that's the chiddush of the pasuk, Mayim Rabim lo yuchol l'chapes hasava, that there's a love that's even deeper than the power of the Mayim Rabim, than all of these rivers, and therefore it doesn't silence the love, it doesn't extinguish the love. There's something deeper, because this is, the love is, as he says, Mili b'shamayim v'imcha lechafatzti baretz, Gan Eden can't satisfy it. That's something connected more la'asad love itchiyas hamesim, that is reached in this world through Torah and mitzvahs. What does all this mean? So for this, he started to explain the story of Rivka in Parshas Chayei, that Eliezer saw Rivka going down into the Mayan, Vatered ha'ayna, Vatamali Kadesh, she filled up her kad, which he teaches kad, also is a remez, it's a hint for the 24 Sfarim of the Tanakh. And that she filled up from where? From the Mayan. She had to go down under the ground. They dug up the Mayan, as they used to do, they still do, in order for her to draw water. And this happens through Rivka. Rivka is the one who can access the Mayan and allow us, throughout all the generations, to access the Mayan through Torah and mitzvahs, which will be revealed fully during Chiyas HaMeis. To understand this, he says we have to explain what Yitzchak is. Yitzchak means laughter, but not just laughter, it's future laughter. Yitzchak, with a yud in the beginning, is Yitzchak, he will laugh. It's laughing in the future. Tzachak, without a yud, is laughing in the past. Tzachik is laughing in the present. And Yitzchak is, he will laugh in the future. Like we say in Tehillim, Oz yimale schayk pinu shenenurina. What is the idea of this? So for this, he started to explain the pasuk in Tehillim. Shemesh u'mogein Hashem Elikim. It's not stam being poetic, using two names for Hashem. Hashem is the sun, Hashem is the shield, he gives us light, he gives us protection. No, the Hashem and Elikim have a relationship like the Shemesh and the Mogen. We wouldn't be able to experience the sun if the sun was not covered by a nartek, by a shield, which is called the Mogen. Gemara says famously that one day Kadosh Baruch Hu might see Chamam in nartek, he will take the sun out of its container. And as a result of that, the heat and the light is too intense. So the Shemesh, in order for us to enjoy it, to benefit from it, it has to be eclipsed. If it wouldn't be eclipsed, we would burn up from the intensity of the heat. The same is true, ki Shemesh u'mogen havaya elikim. What mogen is to the Shemesh physically, elikim is to Yud Kei Vav Kei. Yud Kei Vav Kei represents the divine energy that fills and creates the entire world and everything in the world from nothing to something every moment. if that would be completely revealed and manifested, like the Shemesh, there would cease to be a sense of I and separateness. Just like the heat of the sun, you wouldn't be able to exist, you would be burnt up by it. You can't be a person observing the sun, because when the fire is too powerful, you get burnt up, you become consumed by it. So the Shemesh needs a Mageh. In order for there to be a Nivra, to be a created being who's separate, who senses himself or herself as completely separate and even detached and lonely, and a Davar Nifrit, as he puts it, a Yesh and Davar Nifrit, completely separate, that's what a Likim does. A Likim is the Nartik for Shem Havaya. And the more Nartakim, the more garments, the more veils, the more curtains, the more concealment. Each world, when we speak about in Torah's Hanister, Pnimis HaTorah, there's always a discussion about worlds, many worlds. Olam Hazan, Olam Haban, Gan Eden HaTachna, Gan Eden Alien, and Atzilus Bri, Yitzir Asiyah. What do we mean different worlds? Every world in Hebrew means Olam. Olam comes from the word Helam. The Gemara says that in Psachim. Olam comes from the word Helam, concealment. For there to be any world, there has to be concealment. For there to be Metzias, for there to be a self-contained reality, there has to be a concealment. There's no Olam without a Helam. The question is how deep the Helam, how powerful the concealment, how much is the sense of detachment. Every world is a product of another level of concealment. The sun has many different containers, so to speak, spiritually speaking. If Havaya is eclipsed by one type of Elikim, you can have a very holy world, which you would call Atzilus or Gan Eden. If there's a more intense Elikim, as he says, there's 120 combinations of how you could write a Elikim, which represents 120 different types of energies. The more Levushim, the more veils, the more containers, the more separateness, the more detached, till the point where there's a world where there's complete darkness. You feel absolutely no connection with anything higher. You feel absolutely alone. You feel completely separate. And in this world itself, every person is in a different place. Every creature is in a different place. Every type of existence has its own unique way it experiences reality, even within people themselves, even within one family. Everyone experiences reality. Some people experience reality with very bright colors, and some people experience reality in very dark colors. They live in the same world. They could be in the same room right now. If you go through this room, every single person, we're in the same room, but nobody's in the same place. As the Baal Shem says, Shamhu nimtza, where your thoughts are, that's where you are. So you can have two people sitting on the same couch, sitting by the same table, sitting in the same office, sitting by the same shia, sitting by the same meeting. Geographically, they're in the same place. Emotionally, conceptually, existentially, they are sometimes light years away. One guy is in heaven, the other guy is in Gehenna. One guy is in the abyss, the other guy is flying high. One guy thinks he's on top of the world, and the other guy feels that the world is coming, his entire world is coming to an end. And everything in between. So in other words, in every person's experience, and sometimes it changes from hour to hour too. Elikim is dynamic, it's not this. And it's all a product because the flow is not simple. The flow of energy from the divine to the person and to the world is blocked. And he says the neshama comes down lamata to be an oived elikim. Everyone has their elikim to work through, to be mahapach the choshech lahar, to remove the blockages, whatever those blockages mean, and transform the darkness into light. So it's not a reason to give despair. It's an opportunity. Every person's mission is to be an oived elikim, as he teaches what's an oived elikim, not just to serve Hashem, to be ma'abed, to do the charbet, and to be masaken, la'abed, as we say, to rafinirin in Yiddish. It's rafinirin. In English, there's a word refine. It's the same word. To refine, not Shem Elikim doesn't have to be refined. It's God's name, but the impact of Elikim on the person has to be refined. That's why the pasuk says Hashabara Elikim Lasos. The purpose of creation was l'sake. The world is not a full, complete product. A world was given to us, and now comes our tikkun. And this is generally the avoid of what we call bittul. And he says in Yiddishkeit there's just 3 strands of tefillah, Torah, and mitzvahs through which one connects to this. And this is the source of tzchai. This is where we're holding. This is the source of tzchai. Let's see, right. You see, we're holding Yudches Amud Aleph, Yudches column 1, which is page 35. And he started to say, Okay, we'll start again the first line. V'zeh tzchoik asali elikim. Sheikir atzchoik v'tainug ha'el yenim shechad Hashem elikim. The great tainug, the great delight of Hashem always comes through elikim. K'mosh lo tzchoik shoysim asarim shomidavar chodosh k'may melchemes harim chaya acheres shemay yischatshus nem shechad tzchoik v'atainug. That's when you see the nobility. They have these animal fights of a lion with another animal. They need equal competition. They'll put in a tiger, they'll put in a bear, they'll put in a lion, whatever they do, and they like the competition, the hischachos, the newness. It's not predictable because it's like wrestling. People watch wrestling matches and boxing matches and all types of matches, whatever they are, and the tension of what's going to happen gets people excited. Now, sometimes they're cruel. That's not the point. But the point is, the excitement comes from the hischachos, from the creativity. The only thing new that happens in the world, really new, is that the yesh can come back, can align itself with the ayin. Yesh means something, ayin means nothing. In other words, that the yesh can allow itself to go back to the ayin, to experience itself not as something separate, but as part of the divine, which is always called ayin. The reason it's called ayin is, why is it called nothing? We say the world is created, may ayin liyesh. So one of the explanations, as he says in a few Maimarim, there's different ones, but one of them is because in the perception of the yesh, it doesn't exist. The divine is not part of reality. It's not tangible. So from the perspective of the yesh, it's called ayin. It doesn't exist. It's ayin. So this is the great hischachos. Shan nivrish and nasa yesh v'davar nifrit yuchel levatel asatzma. Mashenkinim lo yashem elikim master. If there was no elikim concealing, lo hayanim shopchid tzchoik v'tainug zeklal. This type of laughter and ecstasy, delight, pleasure, geschmack, couldn't be accessed. Im kain ikir hatzchoik v'tainug osalono Hashem elikim. So sorry, Menu says tzchoik osali elikim. It's a elikim that generates. It's a elikim that creates the catalyst, the springboard. It becomes the foundation for the tzchoik. Elikim is the opposite. Elikim is master or malim. But he says, yeah, but shebesibosai, because of the sibah, because of the cause of elikim, nimshach hatainug. There could be the only tainug v'hainu they have bittul ayesh layam, the bittul of the yesh to the. What does this mean? What is the Balatanya saying here? We see about laughter. He associates tzchoik with hischachos. Laughter is associated with newness. Hischachos from the word chiddush, something new. If you ask a question, what makes people laugh? What makes people laugh? When you hear a good joke, what makes you laugh? Anybody knows? It's too early, huh? Too early in the morning.
The twist at the end.
The twist at the end. How many times can you hear the same joke and laugh? How many times? Unless a real professional who knows how to say it. But that's also, he says it. Huh? So you can hear, somebody from once said, you can repeat a joke. Somebody once told me when you give sermons, you give speeches, he says you can repeat a joke once a year. At the end of the year, they'll forget it. You could repeat a story once in 2 years, because people remember stories. And he said, at Dvar Torah, you could repeat twice in the same sermon. Why you just laugh? It's always the unexpected punchline. If the punchline is expected, people don't laugh. So you can hear a joke once, maybe you'll hear it twice. Somebody starts repeating it, it's not funny anymore. Yesterday you were plotzing. It was hilarious. What changed? The answer is it's all about the unexpected. Other things are not that way. You'll have a song, you can hear the same song 1,000 times. If you love a song, you can listen to it how long. Teenagers who have a lot of time on their hands sometimes will repeat the same song for days, for weeks, for months, and so forth. I was once at a program in a hotel with Mordechai ben David, and I was giving, zu singen und zu sagen. Ich had gesagt and I had gesungen. I was speaking and he was singing. So he got up to sing, and he was singing all of his new songs, and the Olam wasn't excited. So he said, what do you guys want? The oldies. We want the oldies. Shema Yisrael, whatever his old songs. So he said, I was sitting in the front row at his concert. So he said, there's something unfair going on here. Rabbi YY said a speech yesterday, and people were complaining, we heard it already. Yeah, this he said, that he said. With me, you only want what you heard already. He has to come up with something new every time. Me, if I come up with something new, you don't like it, man. This is that. We want the oldies. Why is that? He left it by a question. But the truth is, it's an interesting thing. A niggin is different. A niggin touches a place where you want the oldies. You want the old one. When it comes to ideas, it's very different. When it comes to laughter, it's the opposite extreme. The moment it's old, there's no laughter. You need a hischatcha, something new, something unexpected. Any comedian, this is the skill. The skill is to take people into a direction. They think they're going one way, and he takes them a different. And when they think they end up there, he takes them somewhere else, and then there becomes a double laugh and a triple laugh, a laugh and a laugh and a laugh and a laugh, which is called success. But it's all one akud, his chachas. And therefore, you'll see Lamashal, if a child speaks like an adult. Sometimes you'll have a 4-year-old, 3-year-old say things, like that adults say, and everyone starts laughing. You have an adult speaks like a child, I guess everybody starts crying. But why are people laughing? What's the gelechter is because children are supposed to be children. And when the child somehow assumes the persona of an adult, it's an unexpected punchline. It's always about the punchline. And you'll say a person has a good sense of humor. What does it mean you have a good sense of humor? What's the definition of humor? A conventional situation, you're stuck with a flat tire somewhere on the highway. A person with a lousy sense of humor just sees it for what it is. A person with a sense of humor, you know how to twist things. You bring out the irony of it, the uniqueness of it. You know how to make light of things. It's a perspective. It's a way of turning around the same circumstance, the same reality. But there's a davar chadash, a way of looking at it. And that's always what creates tzchak. That's the secret of tzchak. Now the question is, what's the funniest thing in the world? According to this definition of tzchak, what is the funniest joke in the world? So the Baal Tanya says the funniest thing in the world is bittul. Bittul hayesh la'ayin. That's the most unexpected thing in the world. In other words, if you are a narcissistic, self-centered, depressed, insecure, egotistical maniac, that's expected. Expected. You're just here for yourself, trying to protect yourself, trying to survive in a jungle. According to those shittas, that a person, B'chlal, essentially is an animal. So the laws of the jungle apply to him, and a person evolved from animals. So what do you expect? You expect the tiger not to be a tiger, and the cheetah not to be a cheetah, and the lioness not to be a lioness. It's expected. A Yid once came to a Rav, and he said, Ich will a get. I want a divorce. The Rav said, Wer will nicht? You and Columbus discovered America. Fine. Person says they're struggling in their marriage. Of course, two people, each has issues with a lot of baggage and luggage and issues. So of course you struggle. That's not a chiddush. That's that punchline we know already. The chiddush of life is that the chiddush of life is Mesiras Nefesh. The chiddush of life is that the soul can surprise the ego. The chiddush of life is that there is idealism in a person, that you could transcend the predictable, that you can actually create an unexpected punchline in life. Yes, predictable. You should have been mamish chvezvu. I met yesterday somebody. They've been through, I don't know, Shiva Meduri Gehenim, Shiva Esser Meduri Gehenim, and back. And I was extremely inspired by the person, their tenaciousness to come out of it and live a meaningful life, an honest life, dealing with it, but productive and positive. And I told the person, I said, you're a source of inspiration, because if you would give me the resume of your life and you would ask me to predict where you are today, I would say you're either before the overdose or after the overdose, or bedarten haltus. So a person looks at the patterns of life, there's a certain expected way. And so much of life is conditioned. I don't choose who my parents are. You didn't choose which home to grow up in. You didn't choose which community to grow up in. You didn't choose which genes to have. You didn't choose which mental challenges to have. None of these are choices. Our bechira begins all after that. You have your home, you have your chemical makeup, you have your issues. None of this was chosen by anybody. This is completely beyond bechira. Now the only question is, are you going to give us a predictable punchline? Or are you going to give us an unpredictable punchline? That's the only bechira you have. The predictable punchline means, okay, this is what happened to me, this is the way I'm going to go. The unpredictable punchline is tzchoik asali alakim. The unpredictable punchline can only happen in this world. Before creation of this world, and even after creation, but not in this world, there's no tzchoik. Everything is predictable. An angel never surprises anybody. Malach Michal never makes jokes. He's a serious guy. He's a nice guy, but he's a serious guy. Neshamas and Gan Eden don't surprise anybody. Animals don't surprise anybody. Very unique. It should be a surprise. You could follow the ants. They don't get lazy. You can learn a lot from them, but it's predictable. Computers don't surprise people. Robots don't surprise us. That's what makes them robots. It's a predictable world. The uniqueness of this world is tzchoik asalanu elikim. God wanted to create laughter, to generate the tzchoik and tainu that comes from that which you couldn't anticipate, you couldn't expect. That's the nekud of bittul. When a person takes their yesh and decides to rupture, to
disrupt,
to puncture the darkness, to say that beyond the darkness there's light, beyond the darkness there's the divine, that there's a wholesomeness in the world, there's a oneness in the world. Wow, that's tzchoik. That tzchoik could only happen through Elikim, because if everything would be obvious and gili, it wouldn't be unpredictable. It's this hapcha, it's the creativity, it's this chachus, it's the unexpected. That's where human life becomes dramatic. That can only happen with Elikim. That's the tzchoik that comes from the Helam and Hester. There's no Helam and Hester. There's no concealment, there's no surprise. There's nothing new. It's all expected. That's why Malachim, the way they're programmed, Malachim are called Chayei HaKodesh in davening. Srafim, why they called Chayei HaKodesh? Because they're like animals. They're holy animals. And you can't expect the animal to do something unpredictable. That's what makes it an animal. And it's not bad or good. Sometimes it's delicious, sometimes it's not delicious. But the patterns are clear. But when the human being can actually say, my mind is saying this way, I'm gravitating this, my nature says this, all my fears are telling me, don't pick up the phone, don't go here, don't say this, don't do this. And then you surprise your own fear, you surprise your own insecurity, you surprise your own sense of separateness, and you go beyond it. This is the tzchoik, that's the tainuk. And that's a unique tainuk that can only happen through Elikim, because it's the ischachos, it's the only thing that's new. So God created the world, basically what he's saying, as we will soon see, tzchoik asali Elikim, it's only Elikim that creates tzchoik. It's the tzchoik for which the world was created in order to generate laughter. And that happens only through the human being, the human soul, who struggles with choosing what punchline I'm going to create. Which is why humor is so integral to Judaism. That's why the name, as we will soon see, the name of the first Jewish boy is Yitzchak. If you think about it, it's a very strange name to give a kid. I have the same issue. It's my name too. Think about it in English. You have a boy, first Jewish kid in history. Avram wasn't born a Jew, became a Jew. Yitzchak is the first Jewish boy in history. You got to give him a name. So what do you give him a name? A joke. It's great for your therapist. A joke, laughter. Really? Agelechte in Yiddish. You name your child Agelechte. A comedy scene. What does that do for self-confidence? Kol Hashemei Yitzchakli, because everyone is laughing. That's the kid that's the sufferer. Now we're used to Yitzchak, but think about the name. And it gets better. He names his son Yaakov, which is a heel. So the joke name becomes a heel. You see the pattern. Bashkofer Rishon, it's very strict. Kol Hashem Yitzchak li, lach gesundheit. That's why the kid has to deal with what was supposed to for the kid. So you have to say that in this name somehow is encapsulated the essence of the Jewish story, and that's why the first Jewish child is named Laughter. Why? Now we can understand. Tzchoik asali alakim. The entire purpose of Yeridus Hanashama Lamata is Oived Alakim, is to generate laughter, to generate a punchline that was unexpected, where the soul surprises the mind. Human idealism, human transcendence, what he calls here bittul, b'siris nefesh, bittul hayesh la'ayin. The heroism that comes from the nobility, where you surprise yourself. You surprise yourself every single day. Every day you got to make a new joke. You can't repeat yesterday's joke. And that's why the Elikim of yesterday is not the Elikim of today. Every day the stage is set for a new joke. Yesterday's day is already an alt. It's an old one. It's an oldie, as they say. If you want a joke, you need a new one. So there's going to be a new issue, a new, so to speak, a new layer. And that's the tzchoik of today. It's the avoid of today. So therefore, that's the concept of the tainug. That's why you associate tzchoik with tainug. It's a certain tainug that comes from that surprise. You're startled. You're surprised. Creates a tremendous pleasure.
That's why we say az imani tzchok.
Yes, we'll see now. Vehine. This is one of the reasons Jews have an association with humor. There's a connection between Jews and humor. The first Jewish boy was called Yitzchak. So it's not just some jokes. It's the concept of humor in its deepest sense, what it represents. V'hine ikar hatzchoik v'atainug misgala kishanishlam habirur v'atikun l'shem alekim. But when does the ultimate tzchoik come out? Only when the birur of tikkun of alekim is finished. Till then, it's still in the middle of telling the joke, so to speak. You don't know what the punchline is going to be. There's still the suspense. So it goes this way, goes that way. He doesn't say there's no tzchoik before. He says, Iker hatzchoik. The primary tzchoik, because when somebody understands what's going on, there's a certain tzchoik throughout, when you see the bigger picture. But the real, ultimate, primary tzchoik is kshanishlam habiru. We see this by the creation, ksiv. On Friday it says, Vayara lekimas kol asher asa. V'hinei tov ma'od, vayichulu hashamayim, shebigmar kol ha'malachim is gala ha'tainuk. When a person does work, like by Hashem, only when you finish the whole malacha, then the tainuk ultimately comes out. Mashenken v'oid shaloi nigmar ha'malacha, ein ha'tainuk mizgala ki imu oisik ligmar ha'malacha. Because now you don't have mental space to deal with the tainuk. Now you got to get the job done. You see this in any malacha. You have a project. You're in a project. During the project, you know that there's a tainuk. Okay? That's why you're doing it. You're not doing it stam. That's why you're working hard. But focus is the sweat. It's the avoid. It's the malacha. And there's always projects in life. Person builds a house. There's tainuk throughout. But that tainuk is eclipsed by the heartache of the contractor's mistakes, which sometimes destroys the tainuk completely because the house that you get is not the house you wanted. As anybody who tried building a house knows. You have to get lucky. It's a psoichanes. But ideally, let's say you get the right person. Throughout, there's so much work. You don't have the mental space to experience the tainuk. Even though there's tainuk throughout, that's what's driving you. But at the end, when you see the full picture, you take that deep breath and you're like, wow. And if the malacha was really done according to plan, there's a special tainuk in that. So vayara lekimas kol asher asa v'hinei tov ma'od vayichulu hashamayim v'yaretz. Now could be Shabbos. It's not like people think Shabbos is stam, it's the seventh day. Shabbos comes from the 6th week, from the 6 days. The tainuk comes from the Gemara Malacha. Shabbos comes from the 6 days. It's not like the Gemara says in Avodah Zarah, Misha Torah b'erev Shabbos yachol b'Shabbos. The Shabbos is not born in a vacuum. The same is true the spiritual Shabbos. So the main tzchoik happens after the malacha. Now primarily the asik is the business, the involvement is to be an oived alikim, like he explained what oived is. When the birurim are completed, and the word birurim here is very precise. The word birurim comes from the word boirer in Melachas Shabbos, which means to select, to dissect, to separate. What does boirer mean? Ois kleiben, right? Livrar, to be boirer, to select. Why do you have to separate and select? Because the psilus in Hilchas Shabbos you have. In Hilchas Shabbos you have the malacha of boirer. What is it? That the psilus and the oichel, as it's called in Gemara or in Shulchan Aruch, the dirt and the oichel and the edible food, or the food you want, the food you don't want, are mixed together. And the avodah of birurim is to be boirer. That's what life is. That's what he calls the whole malacha of history, is avodah sabirurim. To be able to look at your life and say, this is psilus, this is toiv. This I embrace, this has to stay on the side. I may not be able to get rid of it, but this goes on the right side of the plate, this goes on the left side of the plate. Not on Shabbos. Shabbos is no boirer, but till Shabbos is dafka boirer. That's called avodah sabirurim. There's no day in which there's no avodah sabirurim. Avodah sabirurim is between moods, emotions, expectations, experiences. What you embrace as your own, what are your values, and what are there just to keep you humble and normal. They're also there, but their function is a different function. That's the avodah of birurim. Azai, when that's finished, Azai ksiv, the pasuk says, Usechadish pnei adama. The face of the world will have a new face, a facelift. Yismach Hashem b'masav, v'yagilu yatzchoik v'atainog. There will be the gilui of the tzchoik. The tzchoik is there a whole time. The tzchoik is what fuels it. The tainug is what fuels it. There's a tainug here. But the ultimate revelation, the explosion of it, when you see the final product, like the punchline, when it's done, it's all over. The gilui is that happens then. That's why when Avram and Sarah name him Yitzchak, it's not like there's no tzchak. There was already tzchak. They said tzchak asa li'alakim, asa b'lashon avar. Kol hashemei Yitzchak li. It's not only in the future; it's also now. The answer is shala asid yi'agilu tzchak v'tainug zeh. That the great gilui, the revelation of this tzchak and tainug, is dafka something of the future, and therefore it's Yitzchak, even though there's a tzchak throughout.
Who's the buyer in this story? I mean, you described the tzchak, but where?
It's the boirer is to be able to find the oir and the choshech. The shemesh and the magen are mixed, the oir and the choshech are mixed, and to be able to separate and to be able to see the choshech only as a springboard, as a catalyst, and you could go beyond it. That's what avodah sabirurim is.
But specifically in the story of the Yitzchak, isn't that what we're saying? That
No, I'm explaining why he calls this avodah sabirurim. This avoid of transforming darkness into light is always the avoid of room, because everything is mixed up, and it's very hard to recognize, to have clarity. The clarity is the challenge. The clarity. Right? To give a simple example, you'll have in a person's life, you'll sometimes experience a very intense emotion. That emotion can take over the entire person. And it takes the person away from what they really want, what they really need, what they really yearn. And the emotion says, this is who I am. What's birurim over there? Birurim is, you can't get rid of it, but you have to be able to do boirer. You have to say, no, this is not who I am. This is what I'm experiencing. This is what I'm feeling. This is what's going on right now in my heart, but it doesn't constitute my story. And therefore I could choose a different path. I can choose to express myself differently. I could choose to say something that will surprise that emotion. You understand what I'm saying? You want me to be more specific? Okay, I'll be more specific. A person, for example, I'll talk about the boring topic of relationships. Rabbi Litzman, is that fine? You want to dafka straight go to marriage? Gewalt warten apartheid. Fine. It's in marriage, of course, but it's really in all relationships. I mean, in marriage it comes out because it's constant and it's perpetual, but it's really in every relationship. A person is taken over. Somebody says something, somebody does something, or you think somebody did something, or you go through something. As a result of that, you experience a very, very difficult and negative emotion to this person. The emotion is telling you this is what you feel about this person, right? And it's completely alienating you from that person. So now, what's the avodah here? One way is, fine, that's it. That's what you accept as truth. and you follow that. And sometimes that may be, and sometimes in different situations, that may even be true. But very often it's not that case. It's not the case. The choshech is eclipsing completely the or, which means if I could look at that emotion and say, this is not the truth of what I really, really believe, or what I really, really want, or what I really, really value in my life. It's coming as a result of maybe my own stuff, my own problems, my own insecurities, my own fears, my own traumas, my own difficulties, my own challenges, whatever it is, or the other person's traumas, and the interaction is making it so complicated. And therefore, instead of telling the person, I'm not interested in you anymore, why don't we cut off our relationship? I'll move to New Zealand. You can move to Los Angeles, so there'll be distance. And that's it. Chasal said the Pesach, it's over. And you say, I'm very honest. I'm being very honest. The only challenge is when you're being very honest based on an emotion that you had now erupted. But what if the person could realize, no, the emotion has a place, but the emotion represents a choshech in me, which has a place in me. I'm going to do avodas haberurah. Avodas haberurah means you tell the person, I want to share something honestly with you. And that is, as a result of my own experiences, I am now having this and this emotion, which is my struggle that I have to work through. What happens now? If there is really a relationship there, it actually makes you closer. Because what happens now is, you connected in that place that was about to break you. The deepest connections are the connections that happen in the places that are about to break you. Because if the connections happen only in the places that we're connected, in the places that we're disconnected, there's no connection. But if we can go to the places where we're disconnected and bring in connection over there, meaning bring you into that experience of mine, help you see me from that place, and I could be vulnerable and share that. Of course, if I'm going to be attacked, it's not going to work for long. But it can happen with both parties. Then what happened? Now you did avodas haberurah. There's psoilus, and it's going to come back again. But instead of worshiping it and becoming a victim to it, you dug, you separated it, you gave it its place, but you chose to connect rather than disconnect. But if you would have asked that emotion to make a decision, what would the emotion say? Of course, disconnect. Because that's what the emotion is saying. You're this, you're sick, I hate you, you're not good, you make me crazy, you get me angry, why do I need this? You're making my life difficult. What if that's just a response of my own stuff that I have to work through? So some people worship it, and that becomes their whole life, and they remain forever in their own clip, in their own shell, because they never had the bitter. Versteht was ich sage? There's thousands of the Gemoyas for this. I'm just giving one very common example where avodas haberurah comes into a person's life. You can't get rid of it, but you can give it its place, and then go to the oir in you, and then fakert. You mahapich the choshech la'oir. The choshech itself, you work through that it shouldn't distract you from the light, but it should be transformed. It becomes a springboard for new awareness. It becomes a springboard for a deeper relationship, because the next time around, when you have a document and it's opposed and Bezdin confirms it, in halach it's considered more powerful than a star that nobody ever opposed. When you have a document that nobody ever opposed, nobody said it's false, it's also fine. But when it was opposed and Bezdin confirmed it, it's a much stronger document than halacha. It's an interesting thing. Why? Because it survived. It survived crisis. It survived disintegration. Huh? Glat is es nicht. So when it comes to kashrus taka, there's the concept of basar, that there was a shaila on it. The Gemara says in Yecheskel, in Chulin, that there were those who stayed awake, but that was a different Indian. But the nekuda is, when the relationship can survive that, the place where we could break, the choshech is transformed. Now the choshech becomes a springboard, because basically I'm bringing into the relationship my insecurities and my vulnerabilities, which threaten to take me away from you, and I'm bringing that into the relationship. And if both sides can communicate on that level, you have a pretty magical situation.
So does the challenge disappear after you've done
No, it's going to come back tomorrow in a different way. But that is clown.
So the Bureau of that challenge becomes another challenge.
Yes.
So if it's a tikkun midas, doesn't that seem contradictory? In other words, if I'm faced with a document that's forged, and I challenge it, and I succeed, and it's affirmed, then it should be a thing decided and disappear. You're saying it comes back.
You're right. You're right. The marshal is not. You're right. The soul is not a document, mamish. But the truth is, once you worked it through, you worked it through.
Yes, I'm saying. So
what comes back is a more subtle.
So it's more subtle.
Yeah.
Test.
Yes.
You're familiar.
Once you're familiar, but sometimes the next, and the emotions know, the clippers know that. So the next day they'll come with much more ferociousness because they got to trap you.
Even if you share,
they mature.
Even if you share with yourself, it's avodah sabrim. That's why I said it's not only about marriage; it's about yourself. Even to make, of course, it starts with yourself. It doesn't start. It never starts with another person. It always starts with yourself. Conversations with other people are only continuations of conversations with ourselves. You can't tell anybody anything if you haven't had the conversation with you first. And those who do, it sounds that way. You know? So it's always a conversation with yourself first. The conversation with yourself will define exactly how the conversation with others will go. Now, sometimes the relationship is not one that demands that. It's not, a plumber comes to your house, you don't need so much avodas habirurim. He needs to do avodas habirurim in the system. There's a word from the Baal Shem Tov. There's a sefer from the Rabbi called Savos Harivosh. It's not as Savos, but it's short Torahs that were written by Talmidim. Baal Shem Tov asks a question. Just the question itself is fascinating. He says there, one of the earlier Torahs over there, I think. He says, Avodas Hashem is constant, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, Einoid Mulvada. By the Baal Shem Tov, that was his yisoid, that there's an opportunity for dveikus. He puts it, the word dveikus at every moment. Dveikus means intimacy. So he asks the Shaila, what about in the Beis HaKisei? That's a Shaila. What happens with dveikus in the Beis HaKisei? You can't learn, you can't daven. That's the Shaila of the Baal Shem Tov. And his answer is, the Beis HaKisei, that's the whole concept of birurim. The body itself is testifying to the fact that life exists only through birurim. That's what happens there. The body, when the moment you digest something, the moment it comes into your tongue, people don't realize digestion doesn't start in the abdomen and the stomach. Digestion starts on the tongue. There are already components in the tongue that begin differentiating. Once it goes down the esophagus, right away the body gets to work. We go do our own thing. But the body is not lazy. The body gets to work. What's the body doing then? All birurim. Das is toiv, das is ra. This goes into the bloodstream, this goes to the fat. This we could hold on, this we can't get a hold on to. This is poison. Okay. Now we got to get you sick because the body needs some better red blood cells. But the body is always doing birurim. And then at some point, the body says, okay, time to eject. This has absolutely no place. This is complete psilus. This psilus is called fat that the body will hold on to. And some of us believe in that type of birurim. And then there's the birurim where the body completely ejects. As Baal Shem Tov said, that's what dveikus is. Dveikus doesn't mean you're always intimate. Dveikus means you always have the clarity. Birurim comes from the word borer. Borer. What does borer mean? Clear. You would think it's the opposite. Borer means it's unclear. No, because real clarity doesn't mean there's no confusion. Real clarity means you have clarity to be able to be borer. That's clarity. That's what happens. He says that's what dveikus. Dveikus doesn't mean you're one without any challenge. Dveikus means you can always be one because you know how to do borer. The moment you know how to do borer, you could say, okay, right now, I'm emotionally in a different planet. I'm disconnected from me. I'm certainly disconnected from God. I'm disconnected from everybody. I'm disconnected from the world. Let me off at the next stop. I'm looking for the Chaim. Let me go meet the Mayonis. But if you can identify that as the psilus rather than your atzmius, that was dveikus. Dveikus at every moment calls for a different thing. Not every moment of dveikus means you're dancing with God. Sometimes dveikus means you identify a painful trauma, and you call it that. And you don't confuse it with your essence. That's an unbelievable form of dveikus. That's why he calls it avodas habirurim. Okay.
This class is brought to you by theyeshiva.net. Please help us continue the classes. Make even a small contribution at www.theyeshiva.net/donate.